Support for the Landcast is provided by Winey Way Books and Pennsylvania College of Art and Design.
Welcome to the Landcast. I'm David Moulton.
And I'm Keith Slesser. In this episode, we spoke to filmmakers Ed Fox and Dan Almoney from Media Boomtown on their latest documentary, Sweet Rock, The Red Weasel Story.
Ed and Dan share about discovering how a small band in Maryland wound up influencing many people.
Because you can kind of always get the band back together. Like, it's about this band and it's about music, but there's a larger lesson at play here, and it's like, it's never too late to kind of do the stuff you really enjoyed or to relive those days of youth when you had such a good time. You know, I mean, 20 years later, these guys have really no reason to see each other or no reason to get together, but here they are playing music because that's what they used to love to do, and they used to love hanging out, and that's something that I think, you know, everybody can kind of, you know, relate to.
They also tell us about the process of piecing together a documentary.
Determining whether or not it's even interesting or not is a thing. And when you decide that it is, then you also have to kind of choose, like, make some journalistic decisions, like, well, what about it do people care about? And you almost have to kind of make those before you even shoot anything. Like, what should I ask them about when I get there? What kind of things should we talk about? And have them lay out their story for us, but also kind of cherry pick and lead them certain directions with certain questions. Those are probably some procedural decisions you have to make even before tape rolls.
Enjoy the conversation. Well, Ed, Dan, welcome to the show.
Thanks
for having us. We're going to be talking about Sweet Rock, The Red Weasel Story, a documentary that you guys did this evening. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what got you on this path of doing this?
Well, like so many other things in both of our lives, the crossroads for this thing started with WHTM TV, Channel 27 in Harrisburg. I started there in 1992, and I met a photographer there named Scott Hedeen, who had just moved from Salisbury and used to tell me all the time about this great band that he was in. And I always filed it in the back of my head, like, yeah, whatever. And he gave me a tape, and I was still like, yeah, whatever. Well, then TV being what it used to be back in the days, you used to get a job in a smaller market and then kind of bounce your way up, kind of like baseball. And so my first job out of college, the experience at HTM where I met Scott, I was an intern my junior year. So I get out of college, and my first job in TV happens to be in Salisbury, Maryland. So Scott says, you should call my friends. You should call my friend Steve and hang out with my friend Steve and my friend Adam and all that. So then I met these guys, a lot of them that were in this band, but still, and then knew of this great band that they were all in or whatever, you know, and still just filed it away like, yeah, whatever. And then, forward like 18 years, and they're going to get together again. And all of a sudden, like, all of these friends that we had in common just lit up like, Red Weasel's getting back together. Oh my God, Red Weasel's getting back together. And I was still like, oh, that's pretty cool. But then Scott called me once, and said, look, we're going to play again. And we haven't played together in 20 years. We're going to play again in Baltimore. Would you tape it? Because by now, you know, I was working for myself, you know, under the name of Media Boomtown here with Dan. Would you guys come and tape it? I said, sure. But then I had all of this experience, you know, and recollection of how everybody used to talk about Red Weasel. So, I ran it by Dan because, you know, I felt like a little too close to it. I was like, you know, they claimed they were something, you know, or that they were pretty popular. What do you think? And he was like, yeah, let's peel back the onion and see what's there. So that's how this all kind of started.
How did you feel, Dan, when he first approached you?
I didn't know what he was talking about. I was like, what? Red what? What? And he sent me some of the tracks. I'm like, what is this? I don't know what this is. But it was kind of funny because, you know, we were able to kind of schedule, open the schedule up a couple of days before the show, and they were all rehearsing. So we went down, you know, we were able to go down and get some of the rehearsal footage. So you have some of the warts of, you know, these guys trying to learn their songs after 20 years, you know, and make them gel as a group before the show. But it really kind of all came together when we found out who actually produced their demo EP and the cassette that they launched, and that's Simon Jacobson, who was in SOA with Henry Rollins, and then later another DC hardcore band called the Snakes, that were on what is
I don't know if the Snakes were on Discord, but SOA was.
Yeah,
on
but
Ian MacKay's label, Discord. Actually, one of the founding bands. I think their first single is like Discord record number 2. So,
so that was the point where it really kind of came together as a story for us, and knew that it was more than just taping the show for these guys. There was an actual story here of past experiences with this band and how people kind of congregated around them and stuff.
When you said they gave you a cassette tape and you were kind of putting it in the background. Had you been listening to the music before you started this?
I listened to it a couple of times, and later when I got one of the first CD recorders, when they were like $800, and only like Denon and Phillips made them, I got one, and I took the cassette and I made a CD of the cassette. And then I was asked by like 5 people in Salisbury and in Baltimore, can you burn me one of those? Make me one of those. And here it is. I brought it with me, the cassette.
The cassette.
Yeah.
It's red.
Wow.
I see that. Oh, well, I noticed from the documentary that it was red, and I thought that was, I remembered back in the, when we still got cassettes, I remembered like some of the bands having like the whole, the red different colored cassettes. I thought that was kind of.
Yeah. So I digitized it. I held on to it, but I actually didn't hold on to this cassette. This I got when we were making the film again from the bassist. He still had a box of them. Mine took off. I have no idea where mine original one was. So I held on to it, but I didn't really listen to it a lot. But then revisiting it and talking with some people about it, it was like, yeah, this was pretty, not polished. It was certainly rough and garagey, but
nobody had GarageBand back in those days, or this was recorded. Yeah, you didn't have those tools, and that's actually a kind of a common theme, and one of the things about working with this is you have to kind of transport people back to that period of time before all this technology was so readily at hand. I think a lot of people think it's so easy to make a record these days and things like that, and these guys spent a day or two in the studio just busting through trying to get 7 songs done.
Right.
So it's really rough, but it was kind of cool too, because we got to go back, and as part of this project, we got to go back and remaster the tracks. So we had the original, DAT tapes, the DAT tapes that, they have, and got to, we brought them into an audio guy that we know, that we work with, Jason Schaefer from Full Tilt Productions in Mechanicsburg. And he put them into a system and, kind of tweaked them a little bit add a little compression and stuff like that, and really brought out the sound. And, one of the things we have online is a video of the process. We have the audio from the original cassette and how kind of grungy that sounds, and then a version from the DAT tapes, which is a little cleaner, and then our new remaster versions, which sound really great.
I'd say when I was watching the documentary, and the whole scene where they're like in the studio and they show them like, I don't know if there was some footage in the studio, I think too. I don't remember, or there was some studio footage. I don't know if it was the original studio footage. Anyway, I was watching it and I remember I was seeing the tape go, and I'm thinking, I've recorded in the studio and it was all digital when we did it. So when you screwed something up, it was no big deal. Just punch in, you just punch in. You don't have to record the whole phrase again. You just, punch in. And I was just thinking, how hard must that have been, recording the whole, so much more work,
stops and starts and things like that. It was a lot more involved before this whole digital revolution thing kind of.
And the tracks they're really rich. Like, even though there's only 2 guitar players in the band, like you hear maybe 6 or 8 guitars, and
lots of layers.
With the technology of the day, they did it, really cut and paste style. Like 2 tracks here, then stack them on top of each other, then go back and stack 2 more on top of each other. Everything back then, we don't think about too much now, but everything back then was really complicated.
Yeah, I believe the producer during the documentary was talking about how full they made it sound when they were done, and really when you in the documentary when you hear their hear some of their rawer stuff, and then you hear like the end produced, you get that sense of there's a lot more going on here than there actually was. That's pretty cool. That kind of skill was unique, you know?
Yeah, and that's one of the things that Simon really brought out of these guys was a sense of how to work in a studio, you know, and that's really something that we talk about in the film, you know, from a period of time too, is, you know, they didn't have that experience, but Simon was around the Discord things. He was used to studio work and things like that, and that's one of the reasons they reached out to him, was to provide that extra guidance, and he really kind of, you know, I think he likens it, you know, at some point to the Phil Spector approach, where they were just adding layers and layers and layers and trying to go for this really big sound. And it's, you can tell that today.
Watching a documentary, one of the scenes that my wife watched it with me and she started laughing at was when, I think it was, the one guitar player's wife, or I think it was his wife, was standing there, and she said he had to buy all this stuff for this show, so we just bought $1,000 worth of stuff that we didn't need and all this stuff. So it better be a good show. And I couldn't help thinking, you know, like if I put together a show somewhere, you know, if I needed to buy anything, she'd be like, that would be my wife standing there, going, which she will hear this because she writes the show, but but you know, why'd you buy that? You know, she's very supportive of me, but it's just, it was very funny watching that scene, you know, just he's bought $1,000 worth of stuff that we don't need.
Well, it was funny because it was almost like the classic wife scenario. Because I think, you know, as all gentlemen here in this room, I think if we all had some crazy idea to get the band back together after 20 years, I think a lot, you know, significant others would have that exact same reaction, especially if we were going out running up the credit card bill.
Well, that actually kind of brings in an interesting question. I mean, you have the people in the band on the show and a couple other people in the documentary, but what was the general reaction you were getting from the public at this point, or other people that you were running into, talking about this band getting back together? Well,
that's actually kind of an interesting point, and, you know, we're actually kind of in the beginning stages of promotion for the project, but to that extent, we ran a Kickstarter campaign for this, which was very successful. We had over, I think, 70 some backers, and raised over $5,000 to handle kind of the back end portion of this. You know, there was a lot of, you know, time invested for us to put the product together, but, you know, a lot of the hard costs are kind of on the back end of things, getting, you know, product made up and having DVDs and CDs, physical product to sell, in addition to other, you know, promotional items and things like that. And we were kind of tired of putting our own money into it. So we kind of reached out to the fan base and the community, and did a Kickstarter campaign, and that was really successable.
Well, it's almost time for us to go to break here, but before we go, we're going to play one of the songs by the band Red Weasel that's, I believe they played on their tape and also on their concert. Can you fill us in a little bit about what this song's called, maybe any inside information you might have gotten from the band?
I think you're gonna play Napoleon Spinks, which is really just really heavy, kind of almost bagpipey guitar part, and just a whole bunch of nonsensical lyrics that kind of string together. Like you ever know the game like I'll say a sentence, you'll change one word, and then pass it on, and then they'll change one word, and, you know, by the end of the line, you've got something that's completely different from what you started with, and that's kind of the way that song seems to have been written, like I'm the Pittsburgher King, right? Pittsburgh, Burger King, you know, father, and it just goes and goes and goes like that, and it's fun to listen to, sonically, but also if you listen to the words, and it's like, they're not really about anything, but you see the mental process going on. It's kind of cool.
This is actually, I think this was a song that they actually had some success with back in the day, because I think it appeared on one of the label compilations that they were a part of. And it was also kind of stood out to us as probably like the single. So this is actually, up for a free download on our Reverb Nation page, and has been featured in a couple other blogs for free download as well. And it's actually part of the 45 red vinyl that we had made through the Kickstarter initiative. So this is the one song on that double-sided single.
Well, here's Napoleon Spinks. We'll be back after the break. Hey everybody, we're here at Penn Cinema to find out what everyone's been talking about. Excuse me, why do you choose Penn Cinema?
I like the seats. They're really comfy. They're a lot nicer than most other places. This is my house.
Oh, this place is great. I mean, it's popcorn. Got some, we got a slushy machine over there. We got 3 clocks. 3 clocks for the Lidditz, the Lancaster, and the F at a time, just in case, you don't know what time it is in your area. That's why I love this place. They think about everybody, very friendly.
Has a nicer environment.
It's clean and comfortable.
It feels independent. It doesn't feel like part of a system. Like, it feels like, as big as it is and as polished as it is, that it feels independent,
Bigger screen, better quality.
So it's really close. It's very clean. We come here all the time.
What do you like about Penn Cinema?
The seats are my favorite thing. Very comfortable. On the rump.
3D IMAX, the whole shebang.
It has a down-home feel, and we love the atmosphere that Penn has created. He really tries to take into account what people want in a theater.
It's really clean, and the seats are really comfy.
Yeah, I like the seats. It's the best movie theater to come to.
Well, you've heard what they have to say. Now come see for yourself. Check out Penn Cinema for first-class movies in a first-rate theater. Located at 541 Airport Road in Lidditz, PA.
And we're back on the Landcast. So guys, tell me about the process of putting together a documentary for this band that is semi-regionally known.
I think, like we said at the beginning of the cast, determining whether or not it's even interesting or not is a thing. And I deferred a lot of that this time to Dan, since I knew these people personally. And when you decide that it is, then you also have to kind of choose, make some journalistic decisions, well, what about it do people care about? And you almost have to kind of make those before you even shoot anything. What should I ask them about when I get there? What kind of things should we talk about? Well, and have them lay out their story for us, but also kind of cherry pick and lead them certain directions with certain questions. So those are probably some procedural decisions you have to make even before tape rolls. What do you think about after that, Dan?
Well, then it's just trying to construct a good story. Once you have all your elements in place, it's a matter of, you want to, figure highs and lows and, one of the things that we try and incorporate is some really good element of humor. This is a second documentary that we've done on our own. The first being Pure Imagination, The Secrets of Comics Creation. There comes a point where you have to really try and grab the audience's attention back. And I actually can't believe I'm leading into talking about this, but the jar of piss sequence is actually one of those moments. We just showed it up at Harrisburg over Memorial Day weekend as part of the Arts Fest Film Festival. And I was watching, there was a table of 50, 60-year-old ladies, kind of probably art film fans kind of thing, sitting kind of in front of us and were there for the screening. And they had the perfect blend of disgust and laughter that was involved with that sequence. So you look for those peaks and valleys of trying to make sure you're engaging to the audience, and not bore them. And, so that's a lot of the scripting that goes into play.
I think the jar of piss sequence, I just wanted to say it.
That's it. We're done.
You guys don't hurt from a rating standpoint if we drop that, do you?
Trust me, the last we've had worse on this.
I think it also served another purpose, and that's that I think it helped people who don't know these guys. I think it helped show you who they are in their sense of humor over this event, and in the fact that the event happened, and what it must have been like living / partying with these knuckleheads, these friends. So I think it went a long way too in establishing kind of personality. But yeah, it was also great comic relief.
I thought it was hilarious myself. I don't want to spoil the story for our listeners because it's a great reason to watch.
Right, because
the
they should buy it.
Yes,
available at sweetrockdoc.com. By the way.
But it is like it came at the perfect time where just to like add that humor in what you guys were talking about in the movie, that it fit well, and it got me even more interested in what you were talking about. So I really enjoyed that aspect of the humor there, and hearing those guys retell the story from different perspectives. Each guy had a little bit different on the story. I thought that was kind of funny.
I really did enjoy the.
You enjoyed the jar of piss.
The jar.
There's animation with it too.
Yes,
yeah, right.
There's animation with it.
Yeah, we brought in. He was actually a collaborator on our first documentary. It was the guy who did the animation, so we thought it was a nice tie-in to kind of bring him back into the fold and allow him to be a part of this project as well.
I liked it seemed really good at the beginning of where you're talking about their history and how the House of Rock or whatever, and it sort of brings, there's a certain feel of wanting to go back to those high school where you have really no responsibility days, where you're just kind of like, let's just party all the time, and having a house. I don't understand. Do they all live in that house, or
most of? I think 2/3 of them.
Okay.
Or, three. I think 3 of the 5 live together. In the house.
Okay. But it just, that whole feeling of first time out away from home kind of thing, and you get that feeling a little bit in the process.
Yeah, and that's and that's it. I think one of the big messages of the film overall is cool in that respect, is because you can kind of always get the band back together. Like, it's about this band and it's about music, but there's a larger lesson at play here, and it's like, it's never too late to kind of do the stuff you really enjoyed, or to relive those days of youth when you had such a good time. 20 years later, these guys have really no reason to see each other or no reason to get together, but here they are playing music because that's what they used to love to do, and they used to love hanging out. And that's something that I think, everybody can kind of, relate to. And, why are the 90s coming back? Why was Nirvana's Nevermind such a big deal? Why was the re-release of Pearl Jam's 10 such a big deal last year? Well, it's because people are nostalgic for those kind of days and those experiences.
When doing this digging into the history of these gentlemen, how much did you notice that they changed or didn't change?
I think more than anything, what was revealed to me, because like I said, I knew most of them from my time in Salisbury. But I didn't know Dean very well, the one guitarist, and I didn't know Chet very well, the bass player. We had met, but I didn't really know him until after, in working on this again. And I think what really became clear to me is you almost have like an archetype of what personalities go into a band. And like, I knew these people, again, separate from this band, but you get them all together again and you talk about your experiences together and you're like, oh, Steve's the clown, oh, Scott's the type A, alpha male. Oh, Chet just wants to get along with everybody. I think that was the funniest thing to me, is like, oh, they all fit this kind of typical, like, monkeys kind of, mold.
Yeah, behind the scenes and things that we talked about when, kind of going back to how the story was put together is, you definitely see personality types come through and the characters. And it's, almost like those horror flicks, where, you got the cheerleader or the dumb blonde or the, not that all blondes are dumb. Sorry. But,
good cover.
Thanks. But, so you have that and you see those, added, those characteristics come out and play. And that's what we saw through these 5 guys is, yeah, to an extent, they were that way back then, but especially now, in seeing them talk and on screen, it really comes into play.
I picked up on it watching the film, especially with the drummer. He had these kind of like crazy eyes. That was something I noticed. And I saw him, I was like, oh, he kind of looks the same. And then when he was telling the piss jar story, I was like, whoa, like I could totally see him being like rocking out on the drums, like with those eyes. And the other one that stuck out to me was the singer. although it didn't seem like there wasn't a lot of footage of him not singing when he was younger, but he still had this like I'm a singer prima donna like feel to his presence. Not that he acted, but he just had this feel that I was like, that guy is the singer. Like you could tell that he's the singer. So
yeah, totally. It's really funny how you get everyone together. It's like if you've never. You have a friend you haven't seen in 10 years and you get together again, and sometimes you just fall into the same old, like, if it's a good friendship, you fall into you can pick it up like no time has passed. You fall into the same roles, joke about the same stuff. It's like, yeah, he's not a prima donna. He's not really that kind of a person, but you get him together with these guys and he turns into that again. It's funny.
Well, let me ask you guys, what did you actually think of the film? Because you guys have seen it, and you're probably, aside from, maybe a couple dozen people here and there.
And you don't have to be charitable because we're sitting here.
First off,
I need a good review.
How many Emmys?
First off, have you ever seen Transformers 2?
Like,
unfortunately, yes.
It was better than that.
Oh, high praise indeed.
It was better than what?
Transformers 2.
That goes on the website. Better than Transformers 2. He's Slusser the Lightcast.
Go ahead.
All right. I enjoyed the film. I liked the way that it was structured and the way that it led me through. As far as the subject, I didn't really relate to the music, but that's because it's not my type of music. But I still found the story interesting enough to not, to watch the whole way through, and it kept me glued to the screen. And it's a different world, like exposure to a different world for me. So yeah, I enjoyed the movie. Yeah.
Oh, good.
I also enjoyed it, and I probably connected with it in a different level than David did, because I've been in a band, I've played music. My brother and I did music, and we used to play in my parents' basement. Growing up, I was the drummer, and he played guitar, and he was the singer. And we had
Keith has the same crazy eyes, by the way.
Yeah, I'm noticing that. We should get a picture and do a side by side with that.
But the whole thing, like pictures, footage of the basement when they're going getting the egg cart. My mom used to work for an egg farm where they package the eggs and everything like that. So we used to get those and we put them all over the basement. And we had cats from the farms and stuff like that. So the basement reeked because that's where the litter boxes were and everything like that. So we were playing in this So
you had a box of poop,
right? I actually
instead
had
of a jar of piss.
We had a box of poop. But yeah, it was just I connected with it on a different level because it was something that was very much from my childhood. Like some of the experiences were from my childhood. Now, my brother and I were 7 years apart, so we never ended up getting an apartment together or anything because,
you cramped his style.
Right. Well, it wasn't so much that as I wasn't old enough to move out of the house yet, and he was getting married, so it kind of put a damper on us moving in together somewhere. But no, the movie, connected there. We didn't really we weren't really the grunge thing. I was more in the era of like the
Backstreet Boys.
Yeah, no. REM,
right.
U2,
right.
That kind of thing. Jane's Addiction a little bit, but so that was more the music. But I did get into, I had an appreciation for the grunge, for the whole punk rock style, like the whole, like screw it, man, we're gonna do, just
right.
having a house and just like not knowing how to play your instruments, just jumping up there and starting to, do it. So I liked the film. I was a little sad at the end that there wasn't a bigger crowd for them, but
but that's perfect.
Right.
Well, like the guy who kind of goaded them into getting together again, the guy at Atomic Books, Ben, said that's exactly what I expected for them. That there were people actually, and the footage, like you see that one shot that kind of pans over and there are two people watching and they're like talking to each other. It's a little deceiving because the sidewalk out of frame of that shot was flanked with all these, 40-year-old somethings who came out to see the show but didn't want to stand in front of the stage.
If it's too loud, you're too old, man.
Yeah, we're all getting a little too old. Yeah. So there were probably 25 more people there than the shot shows. But yeah, you see that shot and you're like, oh my God, that's embarrassing.
Well, we're coming towards the end of the show, but before we get too far away, I'd like to talk a little bit about Media Boomtown specifically. What can you tell us about your company and how you guys got started and what you do?
We're, do you want me to talk? Or do you
Go ahead.
I don't want to monopolize or take away. All right. We're actually a video production company. We're kind of based, in Central PA, servicing Central PA. The company is 5 years celebrating its 5th year anniversary this year, actually. And it started out sort of a shell for some fun projects when we both had full-time jobs. But we wanted to do things. That's how we started our first film. You know, we started it under the Media Boomtown brand, and it reached a point where we had to make a decision if we wanted to go with this full time, and so we got the wives together, and they, you know, had like the Pope Catholic blessing thing, and said, "Be on your way, young men," and you know, so we've been doing this for about 3 years full time now. And this is our second film under our belts, and we've produced a lot of other stuff, cool stuff, music videos and wedding videos and corporate stuff. And jump in here, Ed.
That's what I was going to say. Is the scope of work is wedding videos, corporate stuff, commercials, and then also more and more increasingly, which is great because we love it, is more music work. Like whether or not it's like an overt video for a label, or it might just be like, hey, you know, we're having a release party. Can you tape my set? You know, with pro audio, you know, that it sounds really good.
Yeah, we were actually in Jersey on Sunday. Was starting an EP game for a band called Amber Blues, who we really like, and met at the Millennium Music Conference this year. So we're excited to keep that project rolling along, and got a couple other things in the works too.
Very cool. Well, when talking to people about how you were going to come on the show, there was a lot of questions. I mean, the number is somewhere between me and like 700 people were asking this question. Somewhere in that range is, are you going to do a Landcast documentary next? Is that what your next project is?
That is under consideration. Okay. But it's also in the hopper with a couple other films that we're trying to decide between. So I don't know if that'll be the very next project or the one after that.
It should be. Yeah. We're very interested people.
A number between 1 and 700 is a pretty big...
That's a big audience.
You don't know who's in there.
That's right.
And that's just people I talked to this week. So, I'm just kidding. So, well, how can people...
I will give you a little bit of a hint that we are banting about the possibility of another music documentary. And that's all I'm at liberty to say at the moment, so people have to stay tuned to Media Boomtown. And
he did mention Backstreet Boys earlier. So.
Yeah, maybe he's doing more.
I'm not at liberty to say. The lawyers haven't signed off on all of the paperwork yet. So.
Well, how can people get in touch with you guys, and how can they find the film?
They could find the documentary directly on the website for the film, which is sweetrockdoc.com, D-O-C. They could also get it on Amazon.com, and we're also going to try, if you don't want to, you know, invest the whopping whatever it is, you know, you just want to look at it. You don't want to like hold it in your hands. We're going to effort like a digital, like download, like rental kind of thing too. I think through Amazon, right?
We're going to try and get it everywhere we possibly can. That's quite honestly the short answer. You know, there'll be links through the Media Boomtown site, and you know, we'll have digital downloads. We're efforting that, and for the music and also for the film. And yeah, we're just going to try and blow it up as much as we can.
Well, if anyone has any questions, or you know, wants to know, like, hey, I haven't seen it online yet, or I haven't seen it, but if they have any questions about it, they could ask us anything they want to ask us via email at info@mediaboomtown.com.
What's a great accent? That kind of thing.
I'm not really very thankful.
Well, we're very thankful, even Keith, for the time and attention. So, you know, if you don't feel like saying thank you, I'll say thank you.
I'm going to take my parting gifts and leave.
Hey, thanks for being on the show, guys.
No, thanks for having us.
Thank you.
It was a lot of fun.
We hope you've been enjoying the Landcast.
This episode was produced by myself, David Moulton, with show notes by Keith and Lauren Slesser.
All pertinent links to this episode can be found in the show notes at thelandcast.com.
If you specifically liked this episode, we ask that you consider making a donation.
Every little bit helps. Even $1 a show can keep us going.
If you'd like to help support us, you can do so by going to thelandcast.com/donate.
And don't forget to subscribe in iTunes and tell a friend about the show.
So, for the Landcast, I'm David Moulton.
And I'm Keith Slesser.
Asking, are you in the cast? Well, Ed, Don, welcome to the show.
Dan.
Oh, look,
Take
I looked
two.
over and I was like,
That's an A. That's an A.
well, Ed, Don, welcome to the show.
You said it again. It's Dan.
What did I do?
You said Don again, yeah.
No way. Oh, my gosh. Clear my mind.
Usually my first name